Okay, well, welcome everyone. I am so excited to do this Facebook Live because with all the craziness that's going on in the world, we really need to find the strength that we have within ourselves to overcome all of the negativity and the emotions that we're being bombarded with right now. This is a really precarious time in our culture, in our in our lives, and when we find that strength, we can teach others how to find their strength. Okay. And so thank y'all. I appreciate y'all for coming, and I just want to welcome everyone. And let's get started. Now, negative emotions develop, we learn these from birth, right? When we get hungry, when we're sad, when we need to use the restroom, when we feel pressure, all of our experiences from birth are molding us and changing us and shaping us, okay? And every emotion that we experience, it will satisfy a need within us, okay? Any behavior that we have, it's because it's satisfying a need, okay? And so we're going to talk about we're really going to look at the negative emotions today. There's tons of positive emotions that we all experience and we all have a wide range of. But today we're going to talk about the negative ones, and we're going to really get to the root, the core. Because whenever we see what that need is fulfilling, then we can find a positive way to meet that need and still get our needs met without all of the negativity that can come from it. And as we know, a lot of that negativity has a lot of destructive or limiting patterns. Okay. Now, a lot of these things we've been conditioned with since we were very young, either our parents or our experiences. And whenever we're looking at the human design chart, we really get to see and focus in on what's called the not self, the areas where we have a propensity to kind of use or take the negativity and get a need met. Okay. And so that's what's really incredible with the human design chart is we can kind of like actually pinpoint and hone in on this and that, and it can really support you. However, I want you to know that you don't need a human design chart to do this. Okay. It's just a really cool tool that we can use to focus in on what's working, what's not working, where our strengths are, where we're going to have some challenges, and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to have a challenge here. What do I need to develop? What do I need to learn so that I can face this challenge and be prepared? Okay. So there's probably more, but today we're going to talk about the 8 different ways that despair develops. And the reason that I really want to hone in on despair is because despair is right before you fall into a really deep depression. It's like you're right on the fence. You could go either way. And sometimes whenever we go into depression, we take despair with us, right? And it can feel like a really dark, lonely place. And so I really want to use this time to throw you a lifeline. I've been there. There's a lot of times when, whenever we go into despair, and we go in and out of despair, kind of yo-yo and use it throughout our life. And so I want to show you the needs that despair can actually meet for you, the needs that you're getting met when you use despair or any negative emotion.
Kristin, are you making your slides go forward, or are we still on the title slide? That's what we're seeing we're just seeing the title slide.
Okay. I'm making them go forward. Okay, let me stop and reshare again. Okay, so do y'all see this slide?
We do. They're moving forward
great.
now.
So I was on this slide. All right, one of the unfortunate aspects of human relationships is that sadness is actually a great connector. A lot of women use gossip to bond. And as females, we tend to one down ourselves, whereas, males, they tend to one up themselves. They're like, oh, I once caught a fish this big. And then a guy's like, well, I once caught a fish this big, right? Well, women, we do the opposite. Typically, we will say, oh, I look so fat, or oh, I have all these wrinkles, or oh, my hair this, or oh, this. And we put ourselves down, and we use that as a way to connect. I staying off the pity pot, right? Or having a pity party. I have had those, right? We've all had those. And the National Enquirer, the gossip columns in the magazines, they sell so much because even the news, whenever we're focused on the negative, people are paying attention. They're connecting to it more. They're getting more views whenever they talk about all of the bad things that are going on in the world instead of all of the uplifting and positive things that are going on in the world. They're not going to really show those because you're not going to have a lot of views. So, which is why, you know, a lot of people, they really have a problem with Facebook or Instagram or social media because it's a place of judgment. It's a place where you come and you get to kind of pretend, or you get to, it's a great place where people want to connect, but it's also this place where you're getting judged, and a lot of negativity can form very easily, very quickly in those pockets. And if you want to connect with someone, just tell them about your troubles. And chances are you're going to get sympathy, you're going to get compassion. People are going to hug you, they're going to reach out to you, they're going to call and check up on you, they're going to offer some support in some way, and you're going to get that attention, you're going to get that support, and you're going to get a need met. However, if we talk about our successes, how happy we are, chances are you're going to be labeled as bragging, right? And people aren't going to be able to really identify with you. They're going, or connect with you, because they're going to be like, well, great, your life's going so great, mine sucks. They're going to start comparing their life to yours instead of celebrating with you. And so that's why people will experience side benefits from holding on to depression and despair. Now, first, I just want everyone to know I am not a psychologist. I am not a therapist. I am not a I'm nothing-ist. Okay, I'm not a doctor. This is just advice that I'm giving, and I'm not diagnosing anyone. I am not giving advice to anyone who is on medication. I am not saying this is the way. This is just something, this is like human design, another tool that you can add into your toolbox and use, okay? It can be in all of the techniques that we're going to talk about today. You can use in tandem with whatever you're already using, and you can support yourself with these, okay? So one of the side benefits that we get from holding on to depression and despair are temporary relief, right? We get that connection, we get that love, we get that someone checking up on us and giving us that attention. But in the long term, what's actually happening is it becomes very destructive, and we develop a pattern that limits us. So in order to change that, we need to understand what that emotion is doing for us. We have to look at all the benefits that we're getting when we go into sadness, when we talk about, you know, when we put ourselves down, because it can make us feel cared for by others. However, long term, it's like an imposition on the goodwill of others. And over time, people start to get annoyed with us. They quit giving us sympathy. They lose interest in us, and they don't feel like they can trust us. You know, if you've ever had, you know, a child or someone keep information from you because they don't think you can handle hearing the information because you're going to go into sadness. Then let's talk about all of the things that the side benefits that we get with despair. It reduces the sense of guilt. Okay. Sometimes guilt will feel like a form of penance. And so we'll tell people, hey, or we'll feel bad. And especially if when we were growing up, our parents used guilt as a way to motivate us, right? Or maybe religion. There's a lot of religions that will use guilt as a way to motivate us. And whenever we do that, we say, oh, okay, I will feel guilty. That means I'm sorry. But as we grow up and develop relationships, when we feel guilty, the other person may not realize that feeling guilty means we're sorry, right? If we never learn how to apologize, if we never learn how to take responsibility, if we never learn how to change our behavior, we just keep going into guilt, then what happens is the snowball effect. We have a little problem and we go into guilt. We don't focus on how to solve it or how to change it. We don't communicate with others. We just feel guilty. And then it snowballs and snowballs and snowballs, and it becomes bigger and bigger until we really don't know what to do and we get stuck. So I want to look at some of the guilt gates in human design, and there's a lot of places where we can pull stuff out of the human design chart. So I'm just going to go over, I'm going to glaze over a few of these, the most prominent ones. Anytime someone has the gate 50 or the gate 27, those are the guilt gates in human design. And we usually call this sometimes the breast cancer gate, because people who get this tend to get sick, very, very sick, because they're really, really good at taking care of everyone else. But they tend to be really, really bad at taking care of themselves. And so if you have the gate 50 or the gate 27, understand that guilt might be a really big issue for you. It might be something that is holding you back, something that isn't allowing you to move forward, or it's become this snowball. You're stuck because all you have learned how to do is feel guilty instead of solve those problems that you get, and you're also getting a lot of your needs met. Sometimes what happens with this gates is that you can actually feel guilty if you don't do something for someone else. And so if you don't give someone sympathy, or you don't support them in some way, or you don't help, or if you don't take responsibility for them and help them deal with their own problems, then you yourself will feel guilty instead of teaching someone how to solve their problems. So I see a hand raised. Cindy, is that you, or was that on purpose?
I'm checking. It's not me.
Okay,
I'm not seeing a hand raised. There was one minute. So that was you when you were coming on.
Okay. I just saw that then. Okay. Also, if you have an open G center or an open solar plexus, that's the other place where you can find a lot of guilt. So just keep in mind that there are, okay, so the difference between the 27 and the 50, the 27 is about nurturing someone, and the gate 50 is more about values. And so sometimes the 27 will feel guilty if they're not doing, and the 50 will kind of feel guilty if they're not feeling a certain way, or it may not be necessarily related with doing. It might just be like, oh, well, this is what I'm supposed to think, this is what I'm supposed to feel. So you might see that difference. Despair brings sympathy from others, and this sympathy can often feel like love, but it's actually not love. And deep down, unconsciously, you know that you are using your sympathy, and eventually what you learn is, okay, well, I'm going to get sad so I can receive love, because I don't know how else to receive love. You haven't learned that, or you forgot it, or other people are just overwhelming you with so much love and attention that you interpret that as love, but it actually doesn't feel like love. And you don't know how, you never learned how to get that, and so you just keep doing that. Especially, women will do that a lot. We will say, okay, we'll gossip, we will, and I'm speaking for myself, by the way. I'm not like trying to put this on everyone else, but we'll put ourselves down, because then we get a flood of compliments. Oh no, you look gorgeous, that's wonderful, how could you say that about yourself? Oh, okay, thanks. Right? And deep down we know, like, I needed those compliments, and I was kind of putting myself down in order to get them. And so we're not really caring for ourselves and loving ourselves when we do that. And sometimes we won't believe what other people are telling us. So if people are telling us how amazing we are and how great we are and how we shouldn't think like that, we start to believe that we have to put ourselves down. And so no, I am this way. I am not good enough, or I am not doing something the best that I can, because now I'm getting all this love and attention. And I have to truly believe that I'm not good enough in order for all of this love and attention, for me to actually receive all this love and attention. If I'm just doing it because I'm pretending, and then it's not going to be real, and people are going to be disinterested in me. I have to actually really feel sad and not good enough. Some of the places in the human design chart where we will use sympathy to get love and attention, for sure, the open solar plexus, right? And I have that open. Projectors, and I don't want to give projectors a bad rap. This is whenever they're living in the not self. Whenever projectors living out their strategy and their authority, you won't see projectors like this way. Projectors really know their value. They kind of know, okay, yes, I can do this. I can handle this. But whenever they've learned how to be in the not self, and they've gotten attention from that, because as a projector, they have to wait for an invitation. They have to wait to be recognized. And sometimes it's a lot easier to just like go grab the attention some other way, right? Instead of waiting for the correct invitation, the correct attention to come to us. And so projectors can sometimes go into bitterness, and that bitterness can give them attention and sympathy. The open solar plexus can definitely do that. Anywhere there's sensitivity in the chart. And so one of the places sensitivity is gate 19. And gate 19 is down here. It comes off of the root. Also, another place for sensitivity is the G center, which is this yellow diamond here, whenever we have a connection to the throat. So you can get it from the 1020, which this picture shows, and I'm going to clear this so you can see it. So the 1020 right here, also the 31-7, the 8-1, and the 33-13. Anytime you have that type of configuration, you have the potential for a highly sensitive person. And people who have the G connected to their throat have a very vulnerable voice. And so they tend to be very hypersensitive to judgment, to criticism, to rejection. And because of that, it makes everything very sensitive. And if they, were sharing something that was really positive and that they were excited about, but they didn't receive as much love or attention from it as they shared whenever they were in pain and hurting, then they might be using that in order to get that attention need met. Also, the open throat. The open throat, we know this is a place where people need a lot of attention who have an open throat. My daughter has an open throat, and she's a generator, and so she definitely needs a lot of attention, and we need to come to her and ask her questions and support her so that she feels that she can be heard. And over the years, she's 19 now, over the years, what she's learned is that whenever she tries to just impose on people and demand attention, she doesn't either get the attention or she doesn't get the attention that she wants. Whenever she will wait for people to come to her, that's whenever she actually gets the attention that she is really desiring and needing. And so it's really cool that I had human design at such a young age for her, because she would wear like these bright neon suspenders and these goofy glasses. She did not need glasses, but she would just kind of put on this little costume and go to school, and she would get a lot of attention. And she would come home and I'm like, wait, what happened to your suspenders? And she's like, oh, so-and-so's wearing them. I let so-and-so wear them, and I do this and this. And it was a great way for her to get that connection and recognition in a way that didn't that wasn't imposing on people, was allowing them to see her and notice her and come to her. Loneliness. Despair can justify abandoning relationships with family and friends because you have this idea that, oh, they'll be better off without me. And this is a really, most of the time, we feel most loved and happy when we're with other people, when we're connected and we feel a camaraderie, a real true bond with another person, not when we're by ourselves. You know, humans are social beings, and we know that children in orphanages that don't get touched, that don't get held, they end up dying. Okay, we're not designed to be alone. And so sometimes if you have, you know, gate 40, which can be the gate of loneliness, and that loneliness is actually a signal, a message. It's a call to action to say, hey, you need to go find a community. You need to go find and make connections. Okay, that it's not, I want to be alone, and so I need to be alone. No, we all do need some time alone. Yes, I'm not saying that, but not to the point of loneliness. Okay, you need time to be alone, discharge the energies that you've picked up in your environment and absorbed in your environment. But the gate 40 can sometimes make us feel like, oh, we're always going to be alone. No one is going to understand us, because this gate has kind of the power to say, hey, you're surrounded by all of your friends. Everybody is chanting and cheering for you. Everybody is honoring you and celebrating you. And if you still feel lonely with all that going on, you kind of feel like, well, I'll never feel connection. You know, no matter what, all these people are here for me and they're celebrating me and they love me, and I still feel alone. I still feel lonely. And so what that means is it's time for you to go out and make some new connections. It's time for you to join a community, join a club, join something that's going to support you so that you can reconnect with other people. Okay, and the gate 40 is actually designed and really good at doing that. Okay, and so whenever you feel that loneliness, it's just saying, hey, you need to go form another community or join another club, because you're designed to do that. Sometimes the manifester can want to be alone because the manifester doesn't want everyone interrupting their flow, right? They're 3 steps ahead of everyone else. They move really fast. And whenever they're around other people, they get slowed down, right? They have to take all the ideas that they have in their head, and they're typically visual. That's why they can think so quickly. And then they have to translate all those ideas into language. And then they have to make sure that the other person understands their ideas, because sometimes they tend to be so creative and out of the box and unique that it takes a little time to explain it. And so, or people will try to stop them from doing what they want to do, because remember, manifestors, they're the ones that don't have to wait. And not everything that they do is going to work out, but they get to just, whenever they feel that urge or that creativity growing inside of them, they get to take it and just go, you know, throw it on the wall and see what sticks, see what forms, what picture comes. And so if something doesn't form, it's like, okay, let's move on to the next thing. It's time to go. And not everyone can keep up with it, right? And so the manifestor can sometimes just feel like, okay, you know what? I need to be alone. Y'all are slowing me down. Get out of my way. And what we know with the manifestors, when they inform, it's not necessarily that they have to sit and explain, but whenever they inform and tell people what they're doing, and they tell the people who will be impacted by their decisions what they're doing, that's whenever they're going to have people get out of their way energetically. Okay. And also the manifesting generator. The manifesting generator is very similar to the manifestor. They are thinking 3 steps ahead. They're moving very fast. They don't get to just initiate like the manifestor, but they get to respond. And guess what? Whenever you are using your strategy and authority, life is going to come to you. Generator types have, the way that your aura works is you have this magnet inside of you, and you are bringing life to you. And as you bring life to you, you get to respond to it. And so the manifesting generator has a lot of choices and a lot of things that they can respond to, and a lot of things that they get to act on whenever they're living strategy and authority. And so if they're not doing that, it can feel like nothing I do is working. And because the sacral is such a powerful motor in human design, it's the most powerful motor in human design, and all the motors in human design are motivating forces, right? They propel you forward and help you move. And the sacral, when we commit to the wrong things, we can't just stop on a dime and turn around and move the other way like the manifestor. The manifestor would be like, oh, that didn't work. Okay, let me go over here, right? No, the sacral doesn't work that way. If you commit to the wrong things, you don't just get to stop instantly. You have to keep going until that snowball eventually hits a tree and it gets demolished, okay? You have to kind of live it out and bring things to an end, because that sacral doesn't just get to turn on a dime. It has so much force and momentum, it doesn't slow down very quickly. And so that's why if you have a sacral, you really have to be cognizant of what you are doing, what you're bringing to what commitments you're making, and what you're responding to, and that you're using your strategy and authority so that you get to move at your speed, and you don't have to be like, oh God, what did I get myself into, and how do I get out of it? And then you're stuck. And that's one of the really big problems with the sacral center, is that a lot of times they'll feel stuck, and it's because they can't just get out of something. They have to wait, they have to respond to quitting so that it all happens in the right way. So avoiding responsibility. Sometimes despair is an excuse for avoiding obligation and responsibilities, right? So if you are, or I'll tell you a story. There was this one woman who she got married, and after she got married, she developed a fear of dying. And this fear of dying was so strong that she couldn't really go anywhere. She couldn't really do anything. She would, go outside and start to run errands or go to the doctor, but then she would get so scared that she was going to die that she would go back inside, and she couldn't go anywhere by herself. Her husband would have to go everywhere with her. And it only got worse over the years. After she had 2 children, and it continued to get worse and worse and worse. And it got to the point where she couldn't even get out of bed until 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And she just had this overwhelming fear. Well, she had found a therapist, and they had been going to therapy for years over this, but she went to this new therapist, and he said, I learned this new technique, and I want to use it with you. And the technique is, he was like, whenever your wife is sad like this, he was talking to the husband, and the husband was amazing. The husband was very supportive, and he would help her all the time. And he's like, well, what do you do whenever your wife is in bed? He's like, well, every day before I leave, I'll give her a kiss, and I'll tell her, I hope you feel better. And I'll call her throughout the day. And she's like, well, who takes care of the children whenever, you're at work and she can't get out of bed? Well, either his mom would come over or her mom would come over and do the cooking and the caring and take care of the kids until, later in the afternoon when she could get out of bed. And so he was like, okay, we're going to try a new approach. This approach is where you're going to do the opposite of what you normally do. And so what's something that you could do that's really strong, that's the opposite of, kissing your wife and telling her that you hope you feel better and calling her? And he's like, well, I could tell her to drop dead. And he's like, oh, the therapist was like, that's great. That's wonderful. You could say drop dead. And he goes, and then the husband's like, oh, I could even do one better. I could tell her that when you die, I'm going to remarry someone else. And so the wife was like, she kind of laughed a little nervously. She's like, she didn't think it was going to work. A week later, she was so upset that she's like, I need an appointment right now. We're gonna come in and we're just gonna solve this. I know what this is about, and I'm done. I'm ready to get over it. And so the therapist is like, okay, we'll come in. So her and her husband come in, and she's like, whenever I first got married, I wanted to go to college. I was a professional, but my mom And my mother-in-law, they didn't want me to go to college. They didn't want me to have a career. They wanted me to stay home and take care of the children. And I tried to circumvent that. But my husband kind of sided with them. And I felt so alone. And and so she was avoiding all of the responsibilities of being a house mom and being and taking care of the kids, and she was making her relatives do that and her husband do that. And she was like, I now know that I don't want to live this life anymore. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to also get a job. I want to start working, and I'm going to pay for myself to go to college. And when her husband realized what was going on, he had no clue. He didn't realize that was the core issue to her feeling this way and being in despair and depressed. He was like, yes, of course, I'll support you, whatever you want. And she ended up going to college and getting her degree and being a professional woman. And so this is one of the ways that despair we can use it as an excuse to avoid responsibility. And so in the human design chart, anytime we see an open solar plexus, remember, open solar plexus are not here to work. And so sometimes they get labeled as lazy, right? Excuse me, I said open solar plexus. I mean open sacral. Okay, the open sacral. It's not designed to work. And so the open sacral sometimes gets labeled as lazy, but they truly don't have the energy to fulfill all these responsibilities that sometimes people and parents and work and society will put on them. Okay, so we have to be really cognizant of what responsibilities you're choosing, what commitments you're making. Also, the defined solar plexus. Remember, this defined solar plexus, it has a natural wave, okay? And they need to wait out this wave in order to get clarity. Now, clarity does not mean certainty, right? So we don't always know exactly what choice to make just because we have clarity. That clarity does not mean certainty, but it does give you the clarity that you need so that you can move in the right direction. Okay, now the defined solar plexus can sometimes get hung up on avoiding responsibilities because if they're being spontaneous in the moment, they say yes and they make a commitment to something that probably they should not be making a commitment to. And then when it comes time to fulfill that obligation and that responsibility, they don't have the energy for it. They really don't. So that's something that you want to be really cognizant of when you have a defined solar plexus.
We have a request from Liz to repeat what the gate 29 is about.
I haven't
that's what I thought.
I haven't done 29 yet, but I will get to there. I promise, Liz. The open sacral will tend to take on more responsibility and obligations than they should. And that's because the open solar plexus is not designed to hold on to emotional energy. And in fact, it amplifies emotional energy. So the open solar plexus, when it goes out into the world, and by the way, about 50% of the population have it defined. So that means 50% of the population will have it open. So, and in our house, that's exactly how it is. I have 3 children plus me, and me and my daughter were open, and then my boys are defined. So whenever you have an open solar plexus, you will take in a lot of the emotional energy in your environment and you amplify it. And it feels really uncomfortable. It's like lightning ricocheting around in a bottle, right? And so in order for the open solar plexus to feel good, they constantly want to fix you. They constantly want to do whatever it takes for you to feel good so that they can feel good when they're around you. And in fact, I have my projector son who is defined emotionally. We just had 2 talks yesterday because when he comes to me, I immediately would get overwhelmed with the emotion, like, oh my God, now what is it? And he's like, well, I just feel like when I come to you, I'm actually like, hey, I'm trying to be playful with you, but you don't see it as me just being playful. You see it as like me wanting something from you or needing something from you, and then you get overwhelmed, and then you get mad at me for wanting your attention. And he's like, I didn't realize, what was going on. And so we were talking and like, okay, now I realize what's going on with me. I thought you were upset. I thought you were mad. I thought, and then he's like, and then you're trying to fix me. You're always trying to, well, what can you do? What can you do? He's like, I want you to be my mom. That's what you can do. You don't have to fix me. You don't have to make me feel better because I feel okay. And I'm okay with these emotions. I'm okay with feeling these emotions. But for me, I'm not okay with that. It's not okay for me to feel that. And so we literally had to practice being around each other, even though he was feeling those emotions and I was feeling emotions. I had to say, okay, who does this belong to? Who does this belong to? I am the screen. I feel what he's feeling. And now I can take that message and that I'm getting, like, oh, he's feeling this way. Now I can say, hey, are you feeling this way? Yeah. Well, hey, do you want a hug? I can give you a hug. I'm not fixing anything. I will offer, to hug you and support you, to listen to you, let you talk things out if you want to talk, or if you need to be alone. I'll create a space so that, you can have some privacy. You can be alone in your room, shut the door and listen to whatever music you want and whatever that looks like, but I don't have to fix them. And so that's the challenge for the open solar plexus. Also, the gate 27, it tends to take on a lot of responsibility. And this is also one of the guilt gates, right? So we have a double whammy here. And so the gate 27, because it's designed to take on responsibility, can take on too much responsibility, especially if you have an open sacral, because the open sacral doesn't always know when enough is enough. And so you have an open sacral, an open solar plexus, and the gate 27, and you have somebody that is running circles, just trying to make everyone feel better, and they burn themselves out. Now, the gate 29 is the gate of commitment. And so the gate 29, we tend to overcommit. We tend to say, oh, yes, yes, yes to everything, right? And then when it comes time to fulfill the obligation, we're like, oh my God, no, I don't have the time, or I don't have the energy, or I have something else, or whatever that looks like. And so if you have the gate 29, be aware that sometimes if we, use despair or guilt, we can be like, oh, you know what? This just happened. I'm not going to be able to do it today. I'm sorry. And by the way, I have the gate 29, so I'm speaking from experience. Yeah, that was something that I had to realize, like, oh, I'm saying yes too much. I need to really respond instead of just use my gate 29 energy, which is in my sun, and just say, yeah, I'll do it. Of course I can do it. Yeah, of course I could do it. But is that really correct for me? And so when I use my strategy and authority, then I find what's correct for me. Sometimes we use despair as a way of punishing others who feel they must help, but yet they fail to help. So if somebody who is depressed and sad, and you're trying to fix them, and you're trying to go here, and you're trying to do this, and you're trying to do that, and they say, yeah, but I'm still sad. I'm still sad, and just like the example earlier, she was using, despair as a way to punish her mother and her mother-in-law for taking away her choice to be able to be a professional and to go to college. And so she was able to say, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. From now on, I am going to choose. And when she was able to talk about that and communicate that, she got the support of her husband. And guess what? She also got the support from her mom and her mother-in-law, because they did not want her to be sad, and they didn't realize what was going on with her. So sometimes we'll feel trapped. Despair can make it really difficult for significant other people to leave us, because that would mean abandoning a desperate person, even though sometimes they deserve to be left because they're so mean or negative or toxic, but we just feel like we can't leave them because then they'll have no one. And so sometimes that can look like a fourth line profile. A fourth line profile is actually a really great profile for friendship. And the fourth line profile, because it is so foundational, it can't just leave a bad relationship. It can't leave any and that's also like for work, even if they're at work and it's really bad, it's really toxic, they're not getting paid enough, or they're working too hard, or it's burning them out, they won't leave until they have another job that they can transition into. And the same for a relationship. If they're in a relationship with someone who is really negative and toxic and destructive and doesn't care about them, they won't just say, okay, you know what, I'm done, it's over, and leave. They will wait until they have another relationship to move into, typically. So the great thing about the fourth line profile is if they have maintained their network, we call it network, but it's like social groups that are really supportive, then they can actually leave bad relationships, because those other relationships that they have continued to cultivate can support them until they find someone else. And someone else is probably going to introduce them to someone new, which is how the fourth line strategy will bond. Also, the open spleen. The open spleen will tend to stay in bad relationships or hold on to things longer than they should. And it's not just relationships or past hurts, but it can also be stuff. It can be hoarding. Okay, we see a little bit of that here. And so the open spleen, it can have a real fear of being alone, or all of the fears that come off of the gate, right? That keep them paralyzed and keep them stuck. And sometimes that can look like stuck in a relationship or stuck in a career that isn't fulfilling. What we see with the open spleen, they really tend to kind of latch on to a defined spleen. They actually really enjoy being around a defined spleen. And it's because the defined spleen, the spleen is the center for health, immunity. And so it gives the open spleen a little bit of a boost, because the open spleen can amplify the defined spleen's energy. And when it does that, it has a lot of, it feels good. It's a little boost that they get, and they get it around the defined spleen. So they'll tend to find someone who's defined and hang out with that person and stay in that relationship. And so you really want to be cognizant, if you have an open spleen, that you're choosing relationships that are supportive and enriching and fulfilling. Overindulgence. Sometimes despair justifies indulging in addictions and other self-destructive but momentarily pleasurable behaviors. So, like if someone, you go through, a traumatic event and you start smoking again, or you start using drugs, or you start drinking again, because you feel like you need those substances to help you through that time. And oh, sorry about the slide. Ignore the defined G. That's not what I wanted to show you. I just actually wanted to show you gate 28 in Neptune. Sometimes whenever we have the gate 28 in Neptune, because Neptune kind of puts a veil over our eyes, and it does that so that we keep searching, we keep looking, we keep trying to, when you're reading a book, when you get to the end, you stop reading, right? But if you never get to the end, you're always searching, you're always going, and you're able to find these little things along the way and get inspired and face challenges. Well, the gate 28 is the gate of struggle. It's the gate of challenge, right? And so it's not the gate of suffering, but sometimes it will turn into that. People will turn it into that and distort it, because especially when it's in Neptune, they never realize what they're challenging for. And the struggle is the struggle to find meaning and purpose in life. And so imagine if you're constantly looking for meaning, but because it's a Neptune, meaning is veiled from you and you never find it. It can be pretty sad, right? It can be pretty discouraging. And so if you have the gate 28 in your Neptune, sometimes with this configuration, you have a propensity for addiction, or near-death experiences, something to kind of shock you and wake you up out of that so that you can find some purpose and some meaning. And those addictions can kind of take you to the bottom so that you have to pull yourself back, from the abyss and pull yourself back. And that is what gives you, and that's sometimes how you find meaning in it. But you don't have to do that. Okay. If you have human design, if you have other tools in your toolbox, you can say, okay, this is what it is. This is the way that Gate 28 operates, and Neptune kind of veils that from me. And now that I'm aware of that, where can I find meaning? Where can I choose to find meaning in my life? And Gate 28, by the way, is a great gate to teach and to coach and to share with others, because Gate 28 tends to have tons of experiences. And those experiences will often be experiences that you can derive a lot of meaning from, and it gives you purpose. And so if you have the Gate 28, this is actually a great energy for you to teach and guide others and share the experiences that you've had. And so you can share the purpose and the meaning of life with others without them having to go on all these journeys, because they may not have the energy to do that, right? And despair can get really extreme, especially when it comes together with a threat of suicide. It can be a way to dominate others who are afraid to upset a desperate person, so they constantly walk on eggshells. And this is a very, very extreme case. And so this is something that if you have someone like this in your life, or if you are feeling this way, please reach out. There's a lot of people that want to support you and help you in ways that are going to lift you up and help satisfy and fulfill you in your life. When you're in this, though, it feels really, really scary and really lonely, but it doesn't have to be that way. Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Kristin, and I'm showing you my human design chart because in my moon, I have Gate 51 and Gate 31. Okay. Now that means that I am designed to shock others, but it's not shocking you just to provoke you. It's actually shocking you to move you out of complacency, to direct you into personal transcendence and self-love, into the Gate 25. And when I'm invited to do that, that's the type of power that I offer. Now, why do I need to be invited whenever I'm a generator? A lot of the energies in human design are actually projected energies, so they need to be invited out of you. And so when people invite me to coach with them and support them, we can make some really big headway. So I want to offer some coaching today, some one-on-one coaching, but also some group coaching. And the group coaching that I want to offer is meeting once a week for 6 weeks. Now, sometimes people, they have, a really, they're very sensitive and they don't want to share things, and that's okay. You don't have to do the group coaching. You can reach out and get some one-on-one coaching with me or with someone else. There's a lot of human design specialists that are on Karen's website, and they all have the ability to support you. The group coaching is for people, and if you've had any of Karen's classes, that whenever you're in a group setting, someone will kind of be on the stage. They'll be in the spotlight, but they are your voice. And so you will be listening to them and hearing them. And it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. Or they will work through something they'll work through something, and then you will actually work through that on a subconscious level. The thing about group coaching is that if you want to create change, you have to understand what you want, what you value, what you fear, what you believe. We have to understand all these things about ourselves and the filters through which we experience life. And if you don't know that, then you're just kind of walking around very unconsciously, and you're not going to really feel like you have control. You're going to probably feel more like a victim. You might be blaming a lot of people. And if that's you, you can actually change that. You can take a step into owning your own power and being incredibly powerful. The group coaching is designed to show you how all human behavior, no matter what it is satisfying a need. Okay. And whenever you understand what need is getting satisfied, that's whenever you will be able to satisfy that need in a more encouraging, confident way, in a way that's going to empower you. But in order to do that, you kind of have to get leverage to make a change. So that's where everyone kind of gets stuck. Sometimes they're like, okay, well, I know what I want. I know where my fears are. I understand what need is getting met, but and then they hit that wall. Well, we have to get leverage. Leverage is a very powerful way to motivate people to change. And if you're using guilt, it's not going to work, right? If you're using fear, it's not going to work. Well, those may have been the ways that we were taught as kids, that whenever we go out into the world, sometimes those are the rules that are imposed on us, and the the things that happen in society and with our parents, we kind of use those in order to keep us in check, and they end up not working. As you can see, if you want to make a big change in your life, you being afraid, it actually pulls all the power that you have away from you instead of allowing you to use that power. Okay. And so one of the ways that you can get leverage, a lot of times, well, especially for parents, we will use being able to, or using our kids for leverage. We're more likely to do things for others than for ourselves, like some of those gates that we were talking about, gate 27, gate 29, right? Open solar plexus. We tend to do things for others more than we'll do for ourselves. And so finding some leverage, and one of the leverage that I use a lot are my children, and it's not in a way that is negative or discouraging or destructive. It's in a way that's empowering, because I want to be the best parent that I can be, and I don't want to teach my kids how to go into despair, which is something that, I've been there. After my divorce in 2009, I didn't know how I was going to get out of that. I was borderline like looking for a way out, right? And so there are a lot of things that I was using that weren't working. But whenever I was able to stand in my power, that's whenever I was able to make a change. And what allowed me to stand in my power was realizing who I want to be for my children and who I want to teach my children to be. And those are incredible for me. And I use them as leverage in a regular way, but you're going to have to find your own leverage. Okay. You might not want to use your children, or you might not, that might be not be something that is what motivates you. Right. So we're going to look at that and find what leverage you have that's really going to support you in making this change. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people will have an accountability partner. Having a friend support you and walk with you on this journey is really going to be important. And that's what this group coaching is about. Having a small, intimate group that will support each other and help each other make these changes, and so that these changes last. And ultimately, we need to interrupt disruptive or destructive patterns in our life. And one of the things that I will do, and my kids know, between the ages of 5 to 7, between 5 and 9, children will bicker with each other. They will fight with each other. They will argue with each other. And that is actually normal. Okay. It's actually the way that they bond. Okay. And if you probably had siblings and you look at your siblings and how y'all grew up, y'all probably fought a lot. But if anybody was trying to come at one of your siblings, then you would stand up for them, and you were right there like, if you're going to go after my sibling, you got to go through me too. Right. And so sometimes whenever my children were, getting into a pattern where they were starting to bicker in order to bond, it started becoming borderline destructive, and I wanted to nip that pattern in the bud. And so I would do something crazy and outrageous that completely interrupted their pattern. And I didn't care where I was. I could be in front of strangers. I could be around my friends. I could be at a restaurant. I could be at a grocery store. I could be in the car. It didn't matter. I was going to interrupt that pattern by being goofy and silly and trying to make them laugh. Because laughter, in my opinion, is like one of the funnest ways to interrupt a destructive pattern. And so my kids, initially when they were younger, they thought it was silly because I would just like beep, beep, beep. I would just make crazy noises and crazy faces and do something that was really silly. And they were like, oh my God, what's mom doing? Now they're teenagers. My sons are 12 and 13 and my daughter's 19. So they're like, oh my God, Mom, what are you doing? Stop. Okay, we'll stop. Right? It's a great way to embarrass kids. No, but what we've learned is that because I've been doing this for so long, they know like, okay, Mom is gonna act a little silly if we start bickering. So what do we really want here? What's the solution? And they've learned over time how to interrupt this pattern so that they can go to the core of whatever is bothering them and work something out. In order to do that, you have to be able to define the problem. And you have to be able to define it in solvable terms. And so sometimes it's real easy to be like, oh, this will never change, or I can never do that, or it's too big, or it's this, or it's that. And yes, I've been there. My kids have been there. I've been able to see them kind of be overwhelmed by problems. And that's probably something that I taught them, when they were younger. But I've also been able to show them how to solve problems and look at it in a new way, break things down into smaller pieces. It only takes really tiny steps in order to walk to Rome, right? Or how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And as you do that, you make incredible, powerful alternatives so that you can really get your needs met in such a positive way. And so me and my son, who's a projector, who has a defined solar plexus, we had 2 really great conversations. He got to tell me, look, this is how you're treating me. And I got to understand, oh, okay, I'm taking in this emotion and I'm amplifying it. This isn't how you're actually feeling. Right? And once I realized that, okay, so what can I do? And now I can meet him with not frustration, because I'm a generator, so I tend to get frustrated whenever I go into my not self, and he doesn't get mad and bitter with me. Now he can find success in connecting with me, and I find satisfaction in connecting with him. And that's when you discover who you really are. Because now whenever we come together and we hang out, it's like I truly get to see him. I don't see him from my not self perspective, where I'm frustrated and he's bitter and we're amplifying all of that and just perpetuating, this problem. I get to say, oh, he's being playful. He wants to hang out with me. He wants to enjoy me. And I want to do that too. I want to enjoy him. And he gets to see me for the mom that I am. I'm not just this mom that's walking around constantly overwhelmed and frustrated and feels like I can't solve any of my problems. We can talk and communicate and connect. And that's what I really love about human design, because I get to say, oh, you know what? Because of my gate 29 and my open solar plexus and I'm my open head and root, I'm under pressure to solve all these problems. And I kind of want to come at you and just try to fix you so that I feel okay. And you don't really need that. And I actually can't fix you. That's actually your job, bud. And he knows that. And he's like, I don't even want to get fixed. I just want to hang out with you. And sometimes I want to hang out in this emotion, and I'm okay with that. And he can handle those emotions because he's emotionally defined. So the one-on-one coaching sessions, if you want one-on-one coaching where you want to come meet, you want some privacy, where you can talk about things and start taking steps, those little baby steps and toward big actions where you can feel powerful and you have all these alternatives so that you're able to interrupt those patterns. I'm offering my coaching, which is normally $179. Now it's $125 a session. If you buy a package of 6 sessions, then we will meet 6 times, but also I'm going to include the group coaching where we meet once a week for 6 weeks. And that class I'm offering at $197. I know that there's a lot of crazy things that are going on in the world, and so I am going to offer some scholarships. Now, if you email me, and I have my email here and I'll list it there, I'm going to make sure that we have an equal exchange of energy. Now, children, they learn at a very early age about money. That they learn language, and then the second thing they learn is money. And so we use money as this way to interpret energy. $197 means this much energy, this much work that I have to do, or whatever. And so if you are looking for a scholarship, I totally want to support that, but be prepared because I have the Gate 51, so I am definitely going to initiate you, okay? And so there's going to be some work that you're going to put into this, okay? And it's okay because you're going to get support. You're going to have other people, and I'm going to be there, and I'm going to definitely be there to support you and help you. But I want to let you know that there are scholarships available. As long as you're willing to put in the work, so am I. All right. So Cindy, have you been monitoring the questions or should I just go through them?
There was only one question really that came up on Facebook and a couple of comments.
Okay.
And then it was mostly comments. On finding that there was one question on Zoom about the Gate 28, Neptune and the Gate 28. Is this generational?
Yeah. Okay, and I see that you answered that, right?
I did answer that, but if you want to just, yes, okay.
Yes, it is generational.
Just for the recording.
A lot of the planets that are lower on the human design chart, like Pluto and Neptune, those are more generational. And so that's a great question. I really like that question. So I appreciate you asking that. And thank you, Cindy, for answering it.
Okay, and Terry Kim on Facebook said, hello, not sure if I'm saying this correctly. I have a hanging gate that's red and black at the Gate 50 and white from the Gate 27, open G, open root, center, generator 1-3. So I think this was a comment kind of question on what that might mean for her.
Well, anytime you have an open root, you're under pressure. You have an open G, so there's some propensity for guilt there. The Gate 50 has a propensity for guilt there because you want to take care of everyone, you want to support them, you want to educate them, make sure they have shelter, food, clothing, a lot of nurturing going on. And so whenever you are a generator, you need to be using your strategy and authority where you're responding to the correct things to nurture. Okay, otherwise you will kind of go into the not self, which could be that guilt. And that was what's happening with me and my projector son, is I wasn't actually responding to him. I was just trying to fix him because I was like, oh no, I feel all these emotions and they're overwhelming and I want to make it stop. And whenever I was really able to respond, it was like, oh, I see him. I truly see him now. This is okay with him. He doesn't need to be fixed. Nothing is wrong. I'm the one that needs to kind of look at myself and figure out what I need to do. And so when I was able to kind of release that energy and kind of let it go through me, then I was able to say, okay, this is really cool. And now we can hang out. And now I know what to do next time. And so this morning, whenever I was looking at, whenever he was waking up, I was like, we had so many amazing conversations yesterday. I can't wait to see how today is going to go, because today, I'm going to be able to truly see him all day today, right? I'm not going to go into my not self. And we also talked about, if I do go into that, if feel like I'm trying to fix you, or if I feel like I'm trying to fix you, then what can we do? And so we came up with some signals that we can do and signals that we can use so that he can support me and just truly seeing who he is and not going into my not self.
Okay, I think there was 2 questions. One should be fairly quickly. Do they email you for the scholarship, or is that on the page that you shared?
Email me.
I already put your email in.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, totally email me for the scholarship and I'm going to email you back, and we're going to actually have a conversation and see and see what we can come up with and create together. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be awesome. And I look forward to anyone who would like a scholarship. It's going to be great. And I applaud you and commend you for reaching out and taking a step.
Okay. 2 more things. Cindy said, everything you shared on this live really hits home for me. I want to learn more. I'm new to human design. And following up on that, Manny Perry on Facebook says, hi, love from Seattle. I'm a newbie, just got my chart. What's a good place to start and understand the basics of human design?
Oh,
so 2
awesome.
newbies.
Yeah, hey, newbies. All right, I actually have a program, an intro to human design, that I can post on the Facebook page so that y'all can go check that out. But that's exciting. You just got your chart. So yeah.
And I think Harry shares, I have the channel 2750, the gate 29 and 51 with an open solar plexus, no gates, lots of guilt. But that was it for comments. And Manny wanted to know, what does a typical one-on-one session cover?
Oh, typically we're going to look at what's going on in your life, what goals you have, what you want to change, and then we're going to see what behaviors you are currently using in order to try to meet those goals. And then we're going to see what it's actually doing. Is it actually helping you? Is it actually hurting you? How to find new ways so that you can meet those goals. And some of us already know. We already know what we should be doing, but we don't have the leverage that we need in order to make the change. And so in the one-on-one coaching, you're also going to look at what leverage can we use to actually motivate you in a healthy way that allows you to be productive and allows you to make those empowering changes instead of some of the old things that we're doing. And as you do that, you'll be able to take a step and a step. Now, one coaching session is going to be a great start. You make a lot of headway, but I do feel that when you have at least 6 coaching sessions, you get to go at a pace, you don't get overwhelmed, you don't forget, and you stay on track. A lot of times we can start something, but if we don't have that accountability, then we kind of stop. And that's okay. That's normal, right? But if you do get more coaching, and mind you don't even have to do this with me. You can actually reach out to a friend. You can ask a friend to support you and help you, make some changes in your life, and y'all can brainstorm together and you can just experiment. I'm a first line 1-3 profile. And so a lot of my life, I've had to experiment to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And now that I am, in my Uranus opposition, now I'm coming into that maturity and I'm realizing what actually works for me and for others. And then I can use that and share that.
And that's it for questions on both sides. Thank you very much. Anything?
Awesome.
Anything you want to wrap up with?
Thank you everyone for coming. I hope this really supported you. And if y'all have any questions, please email me. And I think it's going to be really fun to form a small, intimate group and receive some coaching and that support. I really, really encourage y'all to do that, especially if, with all the crazy stuff going on in the world, we probably need it really a lot right now. I know I do. So I hope that y'all are welcome to come and join. Bye. Bye, everyone.